And joining us now, Jared Bernstein of the President's Council of Economic Advisors. Jared, the biggest complaint about the president's $1.9 trillion COVID rescue package is that it's just too big. I want to put some items up on the screen. You would give $1,400, a $1,400 check to someone who's making $75,000 a year and has kept his job. Hundreds of billions of dollars already approved by Congress haven't been spent yet. And there's money for things that have nothing to do with COVID, like $20 billion for mass transit and raising the minimum wage. Now, 10 Republican senators say they've come up with a compromise plan and have asked for a meeting with President Biden. First of all, your initial reaction to what those Republican senators are calling for. And secondly, is President Biden willing to come down from that $1.9 trillion price tag?
Thank you, Chris. Great to be with you. We just learned about this letter from the Republicans a few minutes ago. But the president has consistently said three things. One, he is absolutely willing to negotiate. Two, and this speaks to your question, this plan is scaled to have the punch to finally put these dual crises behind us, to meet the challenge of vaccine distribution, of virus control, and of meeting the economic relief that's so urgent in this moment. The cost of inaction is extremely high. Part three is, as I mentioned, willing to negotiate with Republicans, and glad to hear from this letter that they're on board, but we need to learn a lot more about it. Right now, we're in a position where delay and inaction are the enemy of moving forward.
But just to be clear, when you say he's willing to negotiate, it's clear Bill Cassidy, we'll hear from him a little bit more in the next segment. He's one of the 10 Republican senators. President Biden is willing to come down from the $1.9 trillion.
President Biden has consistently said he will negotiate with those on the other side of the aisle about getting this plan out as quickly as possible. What's so urgent here is getting relief to the American people and finally gaining control of the virus. I think the way to think about this, less than the top line number, is the following: delay, inaction, failure to negotiate, wait and see. These have been the enemies of virus control, vaccine distribution, and the arrival of a robust, inclusive, and racially equitable recovery. And the president is willing to negotiate with everyone who signs up for the urgency of that plan.
Let me follow up on that, because the president talks a lot about bipartisanship. But at the same time, Democrats in the House and Senate are already working on a budget, which, if they pass it, would allow, not saying it'll happen, but would allow them to pass this COVID relief package on a straight party line vote, just the 50 Democrats plus Vice President Kamala Harris in the Senate. So which is more important to the president, bipartisanship, unity, or getting it passed now?
I don't think it's an either-or kind of a choice. Look, the American people really couldn't care less about budget process, whether it's regular order, bipartisanship, whether it's filibuster, whether it's reconciliation. They need relief, and they need it now. And I think what's so key here, and the package is scaled to meet the costs that I'm about to articulate. If we don't get this package as designed out the door quickly, we risk having 4 million fewer jobs at the end of this year. That's from Moody's.com. We risk taking a year longer to get to full employment. Kids who are out of school every year, that costs their lifetime earnings north of 5%. That's a permanent ding on their ability to prosper throughout their lives. There are 11 million people unemployed. The African-American unemployment rate is double digits. So the urgency here is the cost of inaction. And the plan is scaled to finally meet the challenge. And the reason we had a negative employment report in December, the reason consumer spending, 70% of this economy, was negative in November and December, is because we allowed an economic air pocket to deliver by not getting ahead of the virus. And this plan is the first plan I've seen that will get ahead of this virus and finally put it in the rearview mirror.
Jared, you talk about a fairly dismal short-term economic picture, particularly if you don't get the COVID relief plan, which raises a question a lot of critics are asking. Why would President Biden be pushing a climate change agenda now? I want to put up a couple of the things that he did this week. He killed the Keystone pipeline, which backers say will cost 11,000 jobs short-term. And he announced a moratorium on new oil and gas leases on public lands. Does it make sense to be killing jobs at a time when 18 million Americans are unemployed?
So I definitely completely reject the framing of the question. You know, let me go back. It was a campaign line, but it was one that had real economic substance. This was when the president-elect at the time, the vice president at the time was arguing that when his opponent, former President Trump, hears climate change, he thinks hoax. When Biden hears it, he thinks jobs. Not only are there many more jobs in the climate agenda, and this will be more part of the Recovery Act that's coming later than the rescue plan, but this is something where the market is already moving in this direction. And our plans, you know, think of the announcement this week from General Motors to move towards battery-powered vehicles. This is us really picking up and trying to amplify where the market is going anyway. And it's a walk and chew gum moment. I mean, this president won a decisive victory in part because of pledging to take such vital action on climate. And I firmly believe that this is a pro-growth plan. It also has to occur as we take the steps to finally get to a robust recovery when we can start building our clean energy industries.
But Jared, I mean, the fact is that the Keystone pipeline is going to kill 11,000 jobs, 1,000 right now already, 10,000 that were planned. And that's the argument that critics make. They say you're killing current good-paying jobs for the prospect of jobs down the line. Here is the governor of Montana this week.
This Keystone XL pipeline is a lifeline for rural Montana. It would have generated over $100 million a year in taxes to help us pay for schools, law enforcement, infrastructure. This is devastating.
The governor says that when the president signed that executive order, the workers on the Keystone pipeline packed up their lunch pails and went home.
Look, we haven't had the Keystone pipeline in place for a long time, and we certainly had, you know, a very low unemployment rate before the crisis hit. The key to getting back to robust job opportunities is to cease any delay, any inaction, any failure to negotiate, any wait and see around this rescue plan, because this rescue plan is of a magnitude, and that's so important because you questioned the top line number, is of a magnitude to get us to the other side of this fiscal crisis so we can finally and reliably launch a robust economic recovery. Now, you don't get there without virus control. And key to the American Rescue Plan is not just virus control, but it's vaccine distribution. So if we take the steps that the president has outlined, we will begin to see the unemployment rate fall more quickly. As I said, one estimate gets us to full employment a year earlier, 4 million more jobs if we pass this plan against if we don't. So I think that in terms of job availability to robust labor demand and economic opportunity, the American Rescue Plan is precisely the right medicine.
Finally, and I want to switch subjects on you. We've got about a minute left, Jared. There's been a lot of talk this week, as I'm sure you've heard, about GameStop and the big turbulence in the stock market. The White House has really tried to stay out of this and kept referring things to the SEC. But here is Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren this week. Take a listen.
When you don't have an honest market, a lot of folks get cheated, and a lot more folks just say, I'm not going into a market like that. I'm not going to participate. I'm not going to put my money out there.
I'm really asking you, you talk a lot about the economy. Is the president concerned about market manipulation, whether it's from hedge funds, whether it's from retail investors, and exactly what Elizabeth Warren was talking about, that it hurts the economy because it reduces public confidence in the markets?
Well, first of all, the president recognized that the stock market is not the real economy faced by so many people on the bottom leg of this K-shaped recovery. They depend on the American Rescue Plan to deliver both virus control, vaccine distribution, and economic relief. As far as GameStop, I think the president's main concern there is that the regulator in charge, the SEC, Security and Exchange Commission, has to make sure not that there's no volatility and speculation in the market, that's a constant, but that the underlying plumbing of the financial markets remains sound. That's the job of the SEC, and if you read their statements, you'll find that they're very much on that case. I think that from the perspective of Senator Warren, who I always listen very carefully when she's talking about that, really her thematic there is that we're in a situation where the stock market has been going up and poverty has been rising and food pantries are facing massive demand. Families face hunger, about 30 million of them. They face evictions. They're trying to keep a house over their head. That's where the American Rescue Plan comes in, and that's where the president's focus is, 100% on that issue.
Jarrett, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you. Thanks for your time this week, and please come back.
My pleasure.